Okay, so I'm hoping y'all can see my screen now. So you want to open a brand new window, and then in that window, you are going to type classroom.google.com in the browser. I suggest Chrome if you've got it. You'll go to classroom.google.com. And once you're at classroom.google.com, if at any point you're asked to log in here, I'm going to ask you to log in with a non-school email account for now. The reason is a lot of our schools don't let us join external Google Classrooms for security reasons, nor do they let outsiders join our own Google Classrooms for our school. So to join my training classroom, many of you will need a personal account. So if you're asked to log in at any point, for now, use a personal account. And once you're at classroom.google.com, your screen will look a little different than mine, but you'll see on the upper right a plus button. And when you get to that plus button, you'll want to click Join Class today. So you're going to join a class, and I will show you the code in a moment. So we've gone to classroom.google.com. We're clicking our plus button. We're clicking Join Class. And our code will be right here at the bottom of this slide. So the code is 6, and then it's all lowercase, QBKXED. So that was 6 QBKXED. If you're having trouble joining, a couple tips for you. If you're in Chrome, at the very top of your screen, you will have like that menu. It'll say Chrome, then File, then Edit, and so on. If you click File, you can always try New Incognito window, because sometimes our logins get caught up in a weird login cycle if we have lots of different usernames going on. So you can always do File, New Incognito window to try with a new login. That's a great tip also if you have students, if you're remote or in a hybrid situation and lots of siblings are sharing one device. I know that people ran into that a lot last spring, where the kids couldn't access certain things because it was logging in with a sibling's account and they couldn't get things to go away. So that's one tip. And if you really get stuck, you can try a different browser that you might have on your computer, a Safari or a Firefox. But anything that we do in here, I will be showing you as well. So you can watch along with us if you get stuck. And some of the interactive pieces right at the beginning of it, you can just kind of respond in our Zoom chat if you can't do it through Google Classroom. So once you're in our Google Classroom, it should look something like this. And at the very top, you're going to see where it says Stream, Classwork, and People. So for that, what you'll want to do is click on Classwork. And once you're in that Classwork tab of that main navigation at the top, you'll see a category called Introductory Questions. And you'll see 2 question items underneath that category heading. So I'd like you to take a moment and answer each of those questions. This will get you kind of used to what students might experience if you choose the Ask a Question feature. In Classroom, I've seen it used really effectively, even in person. When you click on Introduce Yourself, if you click View Question, you'll see a couple of things. At the bottom, it says Class Comments. That's not where you type your response. It's really misleading. So it will take a lot of training your students to get to that. You'll answer on the right-hand side where it says Type Your Answer. The little eyeball there means that your classmates will see your answer after you submit it, and I have it set that way. That's something you can toggle on and off. I also have it set so that you can respond to each other to start to build that sense of community. So take a moment to do that, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen just for a moment here. And what I can do right now, what I'll be doing kind of on the back end or the teacher end, is I'm looking in the Google Classroom as a teacher, and I'm gonna see, first of all, how many people do we have enrolled? So many people were enrolled. I don't know that everyone was able to, but like I said, the questions you can answer in the chat so that you can see them. The first question was introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and your role in education, maybe what your favorite thing about summer has been, much needed summer for everyone. And then the second question just asks you to best describe your experience with Google Classroom. So as a teacher now, I'm going to view the question. You can continue answering because I see only 6 were able to do it. You can see, I can see it all real time, which is wonderful. This will help you all get to know each other a little bit, and it will also help kind of guide my session this morning in terms of your comfort level with Classroom. So I'll refresh.
We need you to repeat the code, please.
Sure, thank you for asking. So the code, it's all lowercase letters after 6. So it's 6 and then lowercase QBK XED. Thank you for asking. So 6 QBK XED. I will be leaving this classroom active for a while. So if you ever, as you get ready for this school year, want to revisit it as a student, you can do that. As you know, Angie was recording this session to be posted on the OME-RESA website for you to go back to. And I have a bunch of resources in the classroom as well that might be helpful for you. So 6QBKXED. And at the top, we went to the classwork tab. And then we're in these introductory questions section. So you can see here, I get a really great at a glance view of how many have turned it in. And the number of assigned is based on who was able to enroll in the class. And then I can see here which best describes our experience with Google Classroom. Okay. So you can see I asked a short answer question and a multiple choice question intentionally so that you could see both of those modeled. And I think we're gonna get going. So if you're still working on it, do what's best for you, either complete it or you can kind of pause where you are and just pick up with us. So what you wanna do now is you're not gonna wanna close that window, just minimize it, get it out of the way for now. We will return to it, but you won't need it at this point.
No, I'm multitasking.
So to give you a little overview of what we'll do today, we are going to set up the Google Classroom or we'll do one today. You might have multiple as you teach multiple sections, but we will set up a Google Classroom for you today. You'll learn how to post announcements, create assignments, and access the work that students turn in via their classroom. I know we have a wide range of grade levels today, but I really think that grades 4 through 12, there's more in common there. I think all of the kids are going to need to be explicitly taught good Google Classroom habits, regardless of their age level, so that you can get them used to the procedures that you want. So we are going to start with setting up our Google Classroom, and the first section of it will be finding Google Classroom, creating a class, enrolling students, and adding families. So the first part of this is a little bit dense. So what you're gonna do is open another new window. And this one is gonna be one that you'll use with your school account. So you'll open another new window. And once you have opened your new window, adjust it so that this Zoom call is on half your screen and that other new window is on the other half of your screen. Today is gonna be very demonstration based. So I'll be doing actions that you'll wanna see that you can do while you can still see your own classroom. So I think you're gonna wanna see both windows at the same time. as I kind of lead you through or guide you through some steps.
Can you help me download this? I don't know where to go.
Was there a question?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if someone's unmuted or if there's a question. So if there's a question, please repeat it. I don't want to miss it. So you're in a new window now. Go ahead to classroom.google.com. And this time, if it prompts you to log in to your school account. So again, I think someone might be unmuted, so feel free to mute your mic, and if you have questions, just unmute when you want to chime in. So once you're at classroom.google.com, you are going to want to click on that plus button again, which should start to look familiar in that upper right-hand corner. This time,
where do they send you the code again?
I got it right here. Here's the code. This is my classroom meeting number, and this is my code to get
is there a question? Any questions? I'm hearing some background noise, but I want to make sure I don't miss any questions. Okay, remember that you can always mute your mic on your Zoom call. It's the bottom, I believe it's the bottom left-hand side of your Zoom call. So you click on this plus button, and this time, if it asks you if you're a student or teacher, choose teacher, and then click create class. And again, we're doing this all with our school account now. If you're having trouble with getting in through your school account, it might be an issue with your IT, like perhaps IT has not enabled Google Classroom. So feel free to try it out with your personal account if that was working for you, or just kind of follow along with us, and that's fine too. So you should get this dialog box once you've clicked your plus button and clicked create class. Enter a class name. None of this is binding. You can always edit this class information later, so don't fret too much over it. One thing a lot of people ask is if I teach multiple sections of the same course, for, let's say for the younger grades, if we are just, teaching, if we're departmentalized, how many sections, how many Google Classrooms should I make? I prefer to make one classroom per group of kids that I have. I like smaller groups of kids when I'm grading student work, or if I'm letting them comment on things instead of opening up to all of my students. But some people really like to just have, I teach one course and here's the classroom for all the kids. You can, if you set up multiple Google Classrooms, you can very easily reuse posts and post to all of them at the same time. So that shouldn't be too tedious for you. It's not like you have to go into each classroom to create an assignment that's the same. So once you've added your information, you'll click create on the bottom right. I'm going to click cancel, but you'll click create. And then you are in your classroom. So for those of you who this is brand new to, congratulations, you've made your Google Classroom. And once you're here, the question is, how do you get your students in? So at the top, that main navigation, we see stream, classwork, people, and grades. We're going to go to the People tab. And once you've clicked on People, you see teachers and students. With this little person and plus button icon, plus sign icon, I can add co-teachers. So whether it's like a true formal co-teacher or someone who needs to be involved with your class, instructional aides, special education teachers, maybe it's other teachers in your grade level or other teachers in your department. Those co-teachers have all of the access that you have. They can post and communicate with students. The only things they can't do is they can't mute you, the teacher. They can't erase your class. They can't kick you out of your own class. But they are able to add things if they want for their students. And then for the students section, you have the same icon. I'm going to click on the icon so you see what comes up. It's the same for adding co-teachers as it is for students. And here you type in a name or student email. At that point, students would get an email from you in your Google Classroom asking them to accept the invitation to join. Once they click accept, you see them in your roster right there as long as you keep refreshing. For some people, they really might not want to type all of their student names in. Other people, another issue with it is maybe with like the 4th and 5th graders, maybe they don't have email accounts that are active, but they have usernames. Another issue is maybe your students just really aren't that great at using their email yet. They don't really understand how it should be used. So there's an alternative way to do that. So that's one way to do it. And think about, you know, if you're starting out remote or in person, what's going to make the most sense for you. The way I prefer to do it is I'm going to go to my stream. So at the top, I click on stream. And in my header, this picture, underneath my title, I see class code. And I see a little icon, like a square, that I can click on to display the code. So certainly if I'm in person, what I'm going to do, and you really need to just think about what's going to work best for you, but what I like to do is say, okay, students, go to classroom.google.com, just like you all did today. That's why I had you go through those steps. Go to classroom.google.com. Make sure you're logged in with your school account. Click that plus button. Click join and click you're a student. And then here is our code that you can enter. I have far fewer stragglers that way, people that I'm kind of chasing down, you know, when you have like most of your kids in, but not all of them. I have fewer stragglers this way, and it just seems to be easier. It's also really easy if the students in the older grades have already done it for 1 or 2 teachers this way. When you say we're gonna enroll in our classroom, they know exactly where to go. They just need your code. If you start out remote, but you like this way better, you can always type out those instructions however you're communicating with your students and their families. So whether it's sending an actual letter home with your class code and everything, whether it's posting something on your school website, whether you use Remind or Class Dojo to communicate with students and families, you can just send them those instructions to help them get enrolled. So that's how to enroll students. We'll talk a little bit about enrolling guardians, and then we'll pause for some questions. So I'm going to go back to my People tab here at the top. And you can see with some people, it might say invite guardians. With your students enrolled, it will probably say that for all of them. And at first glance, this is like the best thing, right? Of course I want the guardians to be in the know. A couple things to consider. Let's talk about what this does. If you invite a guardian, if their email is already in the system, it will send them those guardians an email. If it's not, you might need to manually enter it in. So you might need to hunt down that email address from the students or your school office. So what it does is it sends that guardian an email saying, would you like to get summaries of your students' progress in Google Classroom? If they accept, they can choose to get a daily summary each afternoon or a weekly digest every Friday afternoon. And that will show them the students' missing work, upcoming work, and I believe it shows posts or announcements that you may have made as well. It does not give families, and by families I mean the adults of our students, it does not give the families access to your Google Classroom. They don't have a school login, so in most schools they won't be able to join, so they can't see the full classroom. For the younger kids, I would recommend that maybe the parents know the student login. That might be really helpful for those 4th, 5th, maybe 6th graders as well. It might be helpful for seniors too. You know, it just depends on the situation. But parents, as a rule, cannot see, and guardians cannot see your Google Classroom without the student login. So the one word of caution with this is if you are, let's say you're in person for instruction and you're not putting every assignment on Google Classroom. When guardians receive that report and they say, oh, my students all caught up, they're not missing any work, those guardians aren't aware of the other work that maybe you've discussed in class with the kids. So you would still maybe want to, in that situation, suggest that families take a look at the electronic gradebook that your school uses, that LMS that your school uses. So that's a little bit about inviting families. We're going to talk a little bit more about families in a few minutes as well. So at this point, we have set up your classroom. We've created a class. You've learned how to enroll students. We've talked about getting families on board. And now we will pause because I know that's a lot. So I'm going to take a quick look at the chat if I can see how to access it on my end. There we go. And I just want to see if there are any questions here. Okay. Okay, any questions before we move on? Are we all good? Thank you for helping each other in the chat with the code as well. Okay, thank you, Christine. I appreciate that. It's never the same online as it is in person, right? So we will go ahead and move forward. We're going to finish setting up our classroom and then we'll move on. So the next steps we'll talk about are your themes, your settings, a little bit of your settings, and how to access your classes. I know sometimes with trainings we get really into something and then the next week when you want to return to it, you don't even remember how to get back there. So I don't want that to be a problem for you all with this. So in your classroom, we'll do some themes. So I'm going to go to, at the top navigation, I'm going to click on Stream. And on that picture, that header, really small in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see where it says Select Theme. So I'm going to click Select Theme in the bottom right-hand corner of that picture at the top. And here I have all my pretty pictures to choose from. You can see different content areas at the top so that you can explore that. Once you've found something you've liked, just click on it. And at the bottom, you'll see a blue button that will say Select Class Theme. That will change your header and the coordinating color, I guess, that goes with it in many cases. So I'm going to cancel, I'll just keep mine as is. The other option, if you notice, under Select Theme, it says Upload Photo. So a lot of people like to upload their own photo. I'll click on that here. They like to take a photo of their physical classroom and have that there. If they're lucky enough to see some of their students in person, they might like to have, especially for the younger grades, like a class picture and put it on there. People like to put their Bitmojis, whatever it may be, or some other graphic that represents your content area. Whatever it may be, you can customize it however you want. Know that when you do, a grayish tint kind of dims the image, and people get really disappointed about that, but that's nothing that you or I can change. It's just kind of built within Google Classroom right now, so don't be too disappointed when you see that come up. And then the other thing to know with it is the sizing can be tricky. So we'll be working in the classwork section later, but if you would see in our classwork section, I put some resources at the bottom, and one of those resources is a template for a header that will help you out with the sizing to make your own header if that's something you want to do. Okay, so that's the theme. That's how to choose your theme. Then the next thing we'll do is go to our settings. So if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see a gear or cog for settings. We will revisit settings several times today, so you'll get really used to where settings is located intentionally. So I'll click on settings. Class details is the first thing I see. That's where you can change all that information that you may have entered at the very beginning when you created your class. You can change it at any time. And then as I scroll down, I see general and I see class code. If I click that upside down triangle next to my class code, I have some options appear. I see I can display it, I can copy it to paste it elsewhere, I can reset it. So if I don't like my code for some reason, I don't like codes with O's and zeros or lowercase L's and ones, because especially if I'm not in person to verbalize the code, it can get confusing for students. So I can reset that code as many times as I want until I get something I like. I can also disable the code. So if I want to kind of cut off registration, I can disable my code. If you get a student mid-year, let's say, who enrolls mid-year, you might need to enable a code. Know that that code will be different. So the code that you've disabled will go away. And then if you would ever enable a code, it would be a new one. If you've made any changes here in your settings, you'll want to click Save in this upper right-hand corner. I have not made any changes, so I will just X out of here in the upper left. That was a little bit about your settings. So let's talk about finding Classroom. You can find Classroom lots of ways. I like to type in classroom.google.com each time. Other people, like, you know, when they're logged in with their school account, they see this grid or waffle. They like to click on that and find the Classroom icon. If the Classroom icon isn't where you want it, just drag it to be where you want it to be. Some people like to type in classroom.google.com and bookmark it. So whatever works for you. Most people like to use that waffle. For some reason, I type it in. But whatever you do, it will get you to this page, and any of your classes will appear here. If you have more than one, you can drag them to reorder them. So you might want to drag them by, you know, the flow of your day or whatever it may be. And these little class cards would show any upcoming assignments that are scheduled would appear right here with your class. And then to get into the class, you have to click on the class title. So that's something people often click and they can't get in. They have to click on the title itself. So that is how to find Google Classroom. So when we're done with this at some point and you want to go back to it, those are some ways to get there. So at this point, let's pause and see how we're doing and if we have any questions before we learn how to make announcements. I'm working on my wait time. Okay. So we will go ahead and learn how to make announcements. I should say before that, I forgot about this one I wanted to say first. Family engagement. As I mentioned, families cannot see a student's classroom without that student's login credentials. I could not encourage you enough to help the guardians of your students know how to use Google Classroom or just access what they need to access at the beginning of the year. I know the to-do list is infinite at this point, but I think that doing this upfront, it's like an upfront investment of your time. It will save you so many headaches, complications, confusion down the road. So I really recommend that you do whatever you can, whether it's sending home like hard copies with screenshots of here's how to access assignments. Here's how to see what your student turned in. Some students will click turn in, but they are turning in blank documents because they want to check their parents. So here's how to open that student's assignment to see what they really did. Here's how for the student to send me private comments, to ask questions or whatever it may be. So if you can reach out to parents, whether it's holding video calls and then recording them if everyone's okay with it so that other families can see who are on different schedules. I would do whatever you can to make sure that everyone is on board from the beginning, because really one of the things that takes so much time out of your day once you get going is like the individual questions, not just from students, but then you might have it from families as well. So getting everyone on board from the beginning will save you a ton of time. For the younger kids, I don't know if they would need this at that age necessarily, but you know, some teachers in class make like login cards for, you know, a 4th or 5th grader. They pass out when they're doing something, so you might want families to do that for the student until they get used to signing in. But I would think by 4th grade they'll get used to it rather quickly. So let's talk about making announcements rather. To make announcements, we're going to use our stream. So I'll go back into my classroom and I'm on my stream. So that's at the top on the left. I'm on my stream. And if you look, there's a little rectangle there that says share something with your class. If you click on it, you can type your announcement. So in your classroom that you've set up, go ahead and try to type an announcement. You can always delete it later and no one will see it if you don't want them to. So type an announcement, but before you send it, take a look here. I have multiple classes. So in this first box drop down, I can click as many sections as I want this to go to. So I don't need to retype it individually for each one. Then there's a box that says all students. all students is the default. But this is one of my favorite things for differentiating is I can select certain groups of students and they will not know that only some have received that and not others unless they're talking to each other about it. But you can select, you know, maybe a group of 5 students to receive whatever announcement is going out. There's an add button here for any attachments. And before I click post, there's an upside down triangle. I can schedule my post. So I'm an early morning person. So I do a lot of work like in the 6 a.m. and before time frame, but I don't need my students to be getting notifications or their families to get notifications that I posted something that early. So I will often schedule something to be released at a more reasonable hour. You can save things as a draft as well if you get interrupted. So once you make your post, and I'm gonna cancel mine, but it will go to the very top of your stream. So it reads like a social media feed where the newest is on the top, or a blog where the newest is on the top. Things get buried very, very quickly, and you don't have a ton of flexibility in the stream as to sequencing. The only thing you can do is you can click the 3 dots on the upper right-hand side of your announcement, and you can click move to top if it's not already at the top. But then the minute you put another announcement, it gets bumped down again, and then you again need to click move to top. So it's not, you can't pin something to the top, unfortunately. I'm hoping that will come down the road. But that's the idea with how the stream works. You'll see in that box where you typed your message, little arrows on the right-hand side. That's to reuse a post. So if you posted something in the past that you want to repost, even if it's from a different class, you can access that there. Even if it's from a different year, if you've archived last year's classes, let's say, and you want to post something similar, you can do that. I know that we want to save time and we don't want to spend our time reinventing the wheel, so that's a useful feature. You'll also see on this screen that I have this upcoming box on the left-hand side. So any assignments that would be upcoming would be listed there with their due dates. So for this stream, I had to do a lot of reordering and moving to top and getting things to be in the sequence I wanted them to be. But on a day-to-day with a class, I probably would not spend my time doing that because you just don't have the time to do it. So that's the idea with the stream. And if you go back to your settings in the upper right-hand corner, that gear or cog, we did class details. We'll go down to general. We won't hit everything in settings today, but we'll get the parts that are relevant for our purposes. We see stream under class code. And if you click that upside down triangle, you can choose who is doing what on your stream. So only teachers can post or comment, students can comment, or students can post and comment. I think the ideal is to have students posting and commenting. That's so good for building a sense of community. It makes the students feel like they're not learning alone, which I know they can feel a lot right now. However, you know your students best, so choose what's going to be best for you. Maybe build up to it gradually. It's a great time for them to learn digital citizenship. Show them, not just by modeling what your expectations are with the stream, but explicitly tell them what should go on the stream and what should not go on the stream. Remind them that this is not social media in the sense that they're used to. It's like an academic social media. So with posts, they can create their own post on their own. I can delete it after, but I can't moderate it. So it has their name on it. I can see it and delete it, but that doesn't mean that other students haven't already seen it. So do what you're comfortable with, but I encourage you to try it out and push a little bit, push your boundary a little bit, as much as you feel safe doing. So if you changed anything, again, in the upper right, click Save. I did not make any changes, so on the left, I'm going to X out of here. And we'll pause here for any questions before we learn how to create assignments. So I apologize for the delay. It's hard for me to access the chat while I'm presenting. You have a time for the things to teach your parents. You have a handout. I'm reading the questions now. The things about teaching parents about Google Classroom, I do have in the classwork section a video that explains a lot. I feel like it's about 9 minutes or so, but it really gives families a tour of Google Classroom. And I like it. I think it's a really good general thing. I don't have a great handout. I've seen some, but they've been a little too busy for my liking. If I end up making my own, I will definitely post it on our classroom, and then you would get, as long as you're still enrolled there, you would get an email saying that that was posted. Yeah, and just a reminder to people, you can kind of decide on your own if you want to do multiple Google Classrooms or just one. Like I said, I want students to be commenting, so I would choose to make one per class, like one per period, coming from like a high school perspective, just because then I'm dealing with, you know, maybe a max of like 30, hopefully not too much bigger than that, maybe 30 students. And also for my grading sanity, I like to just see, like, I don't need a list of 160 students' work. I like to have it in smaller chunks for myself. So I like to see 30 at a time, and then I can kind of go back and forth. So that's just a little, it's personal preference, but that's kind of my opinion with it. Any other questions? Okay, so we are going to move on to creating assignments. So this will be really important for you all. You're going to go to that classwork tab at the top. And there's a lot going on this page. So I'm going to kind of orient you to the interface. You see here in the middle, big headers. Those are my topics. So I've created those topics. You can create them in advance, or you can create them as you create assignments. And then on the left-hand side, those topics also appear, so a student could click on a specific topic and just get, you know, items from that topic in a more expanded view. Your topics might look like Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Unit 1, Unit 2. Think about how you lay out your content. For those upper elementary grades, depending on how your things are set up, if you're not departmentalized, it might look like math, ELA. You might even invite your specials teachers, if they don't have their own classrooms, to have a section as co-teachers. If you are departmentalized, think about, do you still want one class per grade, one Google Classroom per grade, or do you want to split it up? If you are, for those upper elementary teachers, if you are departmentalized and you are having your own Google Classrooms, I would make an extra effort there to coordinate so that you're consistent with each other in terms of, you know, how you're setting things up, so that those kids can just learn one way. The older grades, I think they get more used, the older they are, the more used to they get to having different teachers all day and different styles, so it just takes some time, as we know. So then at the top, we see a create button with a plus sign, which we will revisit. And then on the right, we see some other icons. Meet is to start video calls within your classroom. That is a topic for another day and time, but I wanted you to see, I guess, that you can start those from within Google Classroom. Google Calendar. If you're a calendar user, the next time you open Calendar, you're going to see a calendar with your Google Classroom's title. It was generated automatically for you when you created a Google Classroom, and any assignments with due dates will appear there. Class Drive folder, same thing, but for Google Drive users. When you go into your Google Drive, you might see a folder with the title of this Google Classroom you created, and you might say, I don't remember creating that. You didn't create it. It was generated automatically for you, and all student work that's submitted will be stored there. So I choose to access student work directly from Classroom, but know that Drive is another place you could access it. But you're not going crazy if you see that there. You did not create the folder. It was generated automatically for you. So let's look at that create button. We have a long list of options. Assignment, we will get to in a moment. That's where we'll really spend our time. Quiz assignment generates a blank Google form as a quiz. I choose to make my Google forms separately and upload them, but do what's going to be best for you. Question is like what we did at the beginning. short answer, multiple choice. You can use those in class, out of class. Students can see each other's answers and comment after they've submitted their own or not. You saw that we used it more for introductory things, but it could certainly be used for content as well. Material would be reference materials. So I choose to have those things, those be things that students do not have to do per se, but materials that can support them, useful links or readings or lists or whatever it may be. And then we see reuse posts, so you can access assignments from this class or from other classes that you are currently active or in the past that you've used. So year to year, you can reuse those assignments and you can reuse it and then edit it if you want to update it. And then topics, those were these big headers there. You can create your topics here if you want or within assignments, and I'll show you to do it within assignments if you want. So we're going to go to assignment at the top of the list. And feel free to experiment with this in your own classroom as we go. I want to show you two different assignments here. Assignments with an attachment from the teacher and assignments without an attachment, because they're a little bit different. So I am going to click here, or for my title, right, assignment with attachment. And I'm going to say, open the attachment, complete the activity, return to this assignment in Google Classroom, and click turn in. So then I'm going to add my attachment. So I click add here, Google Drive. And I'm going to click, oops, let me try that again. Insert. So what's very important is you will see next to my file, it says students can view file. If they can view it, that's all they can do. So they can't do anything to it. They can't type on it, manipulate it. So I need to look at my options here. Students can edit file means that they can all edit my original. So it sends every student my original and they can all be on it together editing it. In some cases, it makes sense to do that. A lot of people have like class Google Slides and each student has one slide per file. That definitely takes some explicit practice for the kids. But what I want, and I don't want my original being edited in this case. So what I'm going to choose is make a copy for each student. When I choose that, my original is untouched and each student can edit his or her version and they can only edit their version. So they cannot edit each other's. Then over here, I'm going to click all the classes I want this assignment to go to. I'm going to click whether I want this to go to all students or just specific students. I can choose my points or to make it ungraded. I can choose my due date if I want. I can choose a topic. So I'm going to create a new topic here since the ones I have don't really fit this. So this will be example assignments. Rubrics, you can create right here. You can import them from Google Sheets, or if you have one in Excel, you can change it from Excel to a Google Sheet and then import it. These originality reports for plagiarism are great. They can really help teach kids when they're plagiarizing, and they can check their own work up to 3 times before they turn it in. However, I believe that unless your school has G Suite Enterprise, which is a paid version, you only get to do this for 3 assignments, I believe, as the teacher. So don't enjoy it too much, because I would hate for it to be then taken away from you if you're not an enterprise school. And then I can assign it or I can schedule when this goes out. So I'm going to go ahead and assign it. And if you take a look now at our training classroom, so if you open up that window that you may have closed before, or not closed, but minimized before, you will see in classwork this assignment. So if you click on it, what I'd love for you to do is click on it, open the attachment, maybe type some gibberish in that white box, and then go back to Google Classroom and click Turn In so that we can have some things to demonstrate with here. So if some or all of you could do that, that would be awesome. So you just go to that class where you're a student in my classroom, click on this assignment and classwork, and if you can turn it in, that would be awesome so that we can, I can show you an example of how to see student work. And you don't really need to answer the question, no judgment here. It's just to get the logistics of it all. So when I click, I can start to see who has opened the assignment, which is cool because I can see people's names with it. So you'll notice when you clicked on it, your name came up with the file name. So the students don't need to enter their name. I'll still know who it's from as a teacher. So thank you. I see some being turned in. 2 is enough. So thank you all for doing that for me. So we'll go back in a little bit to see how to grade those or check for them. So I want to show you now what an assignment looks like with no attachment. So you saw with that one, there was that turn in button, right? So with no attachment, I'm going to go to create. I'm going to choose assignment. I'm going to call this assignment with no attachment. And I'm going to say, take a photo of something that contains one of the shapes we discussed in geometry today. Upload your photo. Click Mark as done. So here I'm not going to add an attachment. I think it's important that we remember the kids can do things off screen too right now. So even if you're having them write on a piece of paper, if they can take a photo of it and upload it, sometimes that's a nice break for everyone too. There's a time and place for the tech, so don't use it just to use it when it makes sense to use it. So over on the right-hand side, I can choose who receives it, my points, due date, my topic. I am going to do example assignments, rubric plagiarism, and then in the upper right, I'm going to assign. So now if you are back in that training classroom as a student, try to open that assignment and just take a look. You don't need to actually do this one, but look at the interface, how it's going to be different, right? Like you don't have that attachment there. You don't have a turn-in button. It's a mark as done. So it's not as consistent. And I think it's important to note that and to get the kids to really understand how to submit their work so that we don't have discrepancies down the road. I also want to mention that with Google Docs, and I'll post after this, I'll post an assignment with Docs so that you can see that. With Google Docs, if I have an attachment that's a doc, I did a slides one, there will be a turn-in button on the doc, which is lovely in theory, but then when students go to do other assignments and they don't see that turn-in button, they look for it, and instead of seeing that, they see what would have been nearby, which is the share button, and then they're inclined to share it with the teacher, and then you as the teacher are getting some assignments in classroom, some are being shared with you, and it can really slow down your workflow. So I really encourage you to tell students no matter what, go back to the assignment in classroom and click turn in or click mark is done so that I know you're done with it. If you have an attachment, you can see a student's work if they've started it. So if they forget to turn in, you'll know your kids, you'll know those who are done and just forgot to do it. But I'd really try to get them in the habit of clicking that turn in so you know there's done. There's a sense of being finished with it and a sense of communication about it too. And if you can instill those habits early, it becomes far less of a headache down the road. Of course, give them some grace. You know, we all forget to click buttons sometimes, but it's a great habit to build with them. So before we take a look at how to access that student work, I want to check and see if there are any questions that maybe came up during the moment. That's a great suggestion, Debbie. Thank you. Yes, and for one thing I should note is that for materials, they can be all types of attachments. So they can be documents, photos, videos, YouTube clips, whatever it may be. So that can be a great things to reference multimedia. So you can make an assignment that cannot be submitted. If I'm understanding correctly, what you could do is do the one, you could either do it with no due date and tell them they don't need to submit it, or you could do one without an attachment per se, and they don't really need to mark as done. You could even make it a material as long as it's clear to them that it's something you want them to do. Once they submit work to you, it transfers ownership of that assignment from them to you. So the kids, in order to change it, they would have to go back into the assignment and click unsubmit if they wanted to change it, and then turn it in again. And that helps you kind of track what's going on as well too. Like you might not want them to unsubmit after the due date, let's say. So I hope I answered that question okay, but maybe making it a material might be the best thing if you don't want grade. Can you make an assignment that cannot be unsubmitted? I don't know that you can. The best thing to do, although I think it would get really tedious to do this, the best thing that I can think of is once they submit something, you can click, you know, make a copy and make a copy of that student's work for yourself. But to do it for each kid, I think would take a lot of time. In docs and slides, there's, if you click file, you can then click version history. So you can see when and who, with what username I should say, changed what. So if you're worried about a kid, you know, unsubmitting and changing things, you can always check that version history to see when those changes were made and what changes they made. Good, I'm glad I answered that. And then assigning to individual students, yes, you absolutely can. So if you go to, when you're creating your assignment, you'll see on that upper right-hand side a box that says all students. And this one was already created, but I can uncheck all students and then just check those who I want to receive that assignment. Great tool for differentiation. So we will move forward to viewing and grading student work. I know we are up against that 10 o'clock mark. So I'm gonna go through this part rather quickly, but remember it's being recorded. After we do that, I'll show you and you'll see it actually in the classwork section. It's probably just released now, feedback form, which will be so helpful for me. I really take feedback seriously, so I'm always learning. So I appreciate any feedback, and it will also give you a chance to process all that we've been doing today. And at the end, I'll also show my email address again. So let's take a look at how to grade student work. But that said, I understand if anyone needs to sign off, I understand completely. So how to take a look at student work. I'll show you my preferred method. So I go to classwork, and I click on the assignment. I'm going to click View Assignment, and I can see all of my students on the left. I can sort them by status, so turned in and not turned in, which I love too, so I don't have to like go through line by line to see who's still missing that work, or by first or last name. And I can click on a student's work here. So thank you for those who are able to turn it in. I hope it was helpful for you too. It's definitely helpful for me for this. And this is what comes up. So I see the assignment here. And if anything were typed here, I could highlight it. Whoops. I could highlight it and I can add a little comment. So if something was typed, I'd be able to highlight it and add a comment to it. So that comment would correspond with whatever I wanted it to correspond with. If I wanted, I could also add that comment to a comment bank so I can search for my own comments, like you need a topic sentence. I just use a hashtag topic sentence and that would come up for me so you don't need to type the same things over and over again. If I wanted to pop her assignment out into its own window, I can use that little pop-out icon on the right-hand side of her name on the right of the screen. I can enter the grade. I can enter private comments. A lot of teachers like to type in a private comment and they need to hear a response from the student to that private comment before the assignment is officially graded. That encourages, it's supposed to encourage students to process the feedback that you left for them. And then to go to the next student, I can click these arrows. Or I can even click this drop-down box if I wanted to skip ahead to different students, okay? So the other thing I would mention is returning the assignments. So here's where, let's see if we can get this work. I don't want to take too much time with that. If I want to return an assignment, I can click return and it goes to that student at that moment. If I want to wait and kind of return them all at the same time, I can return multiple submissions next to that return button. Or I can go to my grade book. You can actually do it from that panel as well. I should show you. I can click all students and click return if you like to return them all at once. Or I can go to this grade book. I can hover over an assignment. I didn't put these in here. They just show up there as I create assignments and questions. And I can click, when I hover, there were 3 dots appear, and I can click return all. The other thing I can do is set up my grading. So I wanted to show you that quickly, and that'll wrap this part up. So for grading, I went to my settings. I'm skipping around. So settings in the upper right-hand corner to that here. Class details, I can scroll through. General, figure out how you want your classwork to appear on your stream. Do you want the full assignment and attachments there, or do you want them to actually have to go to that classwork page and show a condensed notification in your stream of that assignment? And then I scroll down to grading. I can choose no overall grade. I can choose total points or weighted by category. If you weight by category, of course, enter your categories and their weight. And you can choose to show your overall grade to the students or not. Students do not have that grading tab at the top like we have. What students see is in their classwork section, they see something at the top that says my work. And when they click on it, they can see everything they have done or not and not done. And they can see if they're allowed to see their overall grade, they can see that there as well. You can also always click on an individual student, sorry, back to use you again here, and see a list of that individual student's work. That's a great thing if you need to send something home to families. You can screenshot that and say, this is the list of what's going on right now. So that's the idea with the grades and the student work. So the last thing that we'll do is there is a super short reflection and feedback form in our classroom. It's in the classwork section. That was something I scheduled to go out. So if you could do that, I would so appreciate that. I hope that you were able to get something new today or feel more comfortable or more confident about Classroom. It's a lot of information, but if you start to know where to look for things, you'll be able to figure it out once you're there. I'm hoping that this at least kind of got you more oriented of where to go for what, so that you really feel like you will be able to do this just fine. I'm gonna put my contact information up here. My email, there's a dot after the L in Rachel. It's hard to see there, but it's rachel.s.mcveigh. Or you can contact me via Twitter if that's easier for you. So just wanted to thank you all for being here today. I hope that you all have a really good year. I know it's going to be very different, but I hope that it's fulfilling and that you can enjoy it nonetheless. So if you have questions that I didn't get to, because I do see some things in the chat. Please email me, because I don't want to keep everyone right now, but please email me your questions so that they can be answered. And thank you again for everything. Good luck this year.